Right. So, as Nick said, I work in engineering. And one of the things I love about engineering is that there's always such neat projects going on. I mean, in my department there are guys who are designing nuclear reactors and studying jet engines. And, oh, the 12-year-old in me just gets so excited. Some of the projects that we work on, though, are a bit more mundane than that. And I had a very interesting example of this a couple weeks ago. So a couple weeks ago, one of the MPhil students in my group, Daniel, came up to me and he asked me if I would read over his MPhil thesis for him. You know, give him some feedback, proofreading, that sort of a thing. And I thought about it and I said, okay, sure, I'll take a look at this for you. But I didn't actually know anything about what he was working on, so we proceeded to have a very interesting conversation. So, Daniel, what is it exactly that you are working on? Design and optimization of a powder inhaler. You're working on inhaling powders. That's very interesting. What kinds of applications are you looking at for that? Improved drug delivery to patients. Yes, I can see that. Although, they're usually not called patients until after they go into rehab. But okay, fair enough. Daniel, I do have one more thing that I'm kind of wondering about. Where are you getting the money to do this project? I mean, who's funding you? A group of Colombian businessmen. How about that? Now, my work is somewhat less applied than that. Also, perhaps less potentially lucrative. I basically do math. And doing math in the engineering department is a bit like playing Beethoven at a death metal concert. I mean, we're all sort of making music, but... so more specifically, what I do is I look at optimization on high-dimensional curved spaces. And I use mathematical tools to analyze what's going on during these optimization processes. Now, this is very interesting for me. There's some really neat mathematics that's going on here, but it's also very difficult because of the dimensionality. I mean, I'm a very visual, concrete person. I like to be able to see what's going on. And high-dimensional spaces are notoriously difficult to visualize. And trying to deal with this has sort of illustrated some of the differences between engineers and mathematicians for me. Because I go to the engineers and I say, look, I've got this 16-dimensional problem that I'm trying to visualize. How can I do this? And, well, they've got some tools to do it, but I haven't found them all that helpful, honestly. The mathematicians, however, are even worse. So I go to a mathematician and I say, look, I've got this 16-dimensional problem. How can I picture this space? How can I visualize a 16-dimensional space? And he says, oh, it's easy. It's easy? What do you mean it's easy? Oh yeah, it's easy. Just picture an n-dimensional space and let n go to 16. Like I said, not helpful. And I find that I'm caught between these two worlds, between the engineers and the mathematicians. Explaining what I do to the engineers is difficult. I mean, I go to a conference and I've got slide after slide of equations, and I get to the end and there's just this dead silence. Yeah, just like that, actually. And, I've actually thought about bringing crickets along with me, so I can have kind of like chirping in the background when this happens. Explaining to the mathematicians, however, is pointless. Because, yes, they understand the math, and actually it's kind of refreshing. I can tell them about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and the applications that I'm looking at for my work. But then they look at me and they say, what's an application? It's just generally difficult to get people interested in what it is that I do. I mean, it's difficult enough for me to actually explain what's going on, but I find it's actually more difficult to watch people as I'm trying to explain it to them. Because, I'm going on and I'm on about my stuff, and I see their eyes glaze over. And apparently not everyone enjoys tensor calculus as much as I do. But, to be fair, it's not a sexy subject. And this is a problem, particularly when it comes to meeting women. Because when most women think about virile manhood, they're not thinking about 16-dimensional spaces. Although incidentally, if there are any who do, I'll be hanging around after the show. Come find me. There aren't even any exciting hazards associated with what I do. With some of the engineering projects, if they went wrong, they could take out the entire engineering building. I'm not kidding. Why do you think they stuck the turbo machinery guys way out in West Cambridge? And this was actually a problem for me back in first year because I had to fill out a risk assessment form for my PhD, and I didn't know what to put. It's not like I'm working with the nuclear guys and could put risk of accidental self-sterilization. Incidentally, my supervisor is the radiation safety officer for the engineering department, and he's in the audience, and I'm sure he's giving me a look right now. Last comment. However, what I have realized over the last few years is that my work does have hazards. They're just not that exciting. So, for example, I have to do some computer programming as part of my research. And so associated with that, there's, increased risk of cranial injury due to repeatedly pounding head on desk. Or increased hair loss due to frustration-induced follicle removal. Other issues are associated with the fact that my PhD just takes up a lot of my life. And as I think I've made clear, it's pretty geeky. So, if I had to fill out that form again, I could put things like reduced social interaction with other human beings, especially women. Although, interestingly enough, I read in a sociology book a while back that humor can actually provide an alternative outlet for the sex drive. So for the greatest hazard of my PhD, forced acquisition of an overdeveloped sense of humor. Thank you very much.